On today's show, he literally changed the game while never playing it. Adrian Wojnarowski drops his final Woj bomb. We'll tell you why it matters to the NBA and how he changed the game on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On NBA your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Leave a review, like the video on YouTube, and comment anything below. What's the biggest Woj bomb you remember? Let me know in the comment section on that. Curious what you guys think about that. And joining me today, multiple time co-host, now it's old hat for us now, from Locked On Nuggets, the great Swipa. What you got for me?
Man, I'm living, bro. It's been a good day, been a great day. Sad to see Woj step out of his role, but you know what? Go home, be with your family. You know, he was tired of apparently, Adam Schefter basically said, this is a 24/7 job. You know, you're on the phone in the shower, you're on the phone in the bathroom, you're on the phone when you're at church, you're on the phone everywhere. You know, so I think that's definitely a reason why you want to take a little bit of a different kind of field of work and approach. And so I'm happy for him and sad to see him go.
We'll get into Woj. We'll get into the reason why. We'll talk about what he's doing and how he changed the NBA. Today's episode was brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Swipa, let's start here. So kind of, I was walking my dog. I was just going around the neighborhood, and all of a sudden, I see a Woj tweet, right? We've all had it where you get the notification straight to your phone. You go, all right, what happened now? And my first thought was it's off season. So what random player is going to work out for what random team, or something like that. Or maybe it's something with St. Bonaventure that I don't care about. And it turned out it was something for St. Bonaventure I do care about, because Adrian Wojnarowski announced his retirement from ESPN and announced his retirement from covering basketball. He had a long message that he gave to everybody. He ended with the -30 which is a journalist like shorthand for no more, the end, like the end of it, which I thought was kind of clever. I didn't know what that was. I had to look it up. And so yeah, Adrian Wojnarowski is leaving basketball coverage, which is wild because we so equate him with reporting and with NBA media coverage and all that. The New York Times reported about him by leaving this role. Wojnarowski is walking away from $20 million with ESPN. Multiple people briefed on the move said he makes around $7 million per year, has 3 years left on his deal, which probably could have gone longer too. ESPN management only learned about his decision this morning. What was your initial reaction to Woj leaving basketball coverage?
Look, I think that whenever you do something at a high level for that long, for 30 years, I think it just takes a toll on you and on your family. And, one of the people that I kind of learned this from in the game was Ernie Johnson. Ernie Johnson is a very big family. And Ernie has talked about why it's been really important for him to do Inside the NBA, to do TNT, because to do it in Atlanta and to be stationary. Because when you do that, especially when you have a schedule like they do, where you only cover large parts of the season and you really only work one day a week for the most part during the season. And then in the playoffs, you're basically on every night. That just gives you a lot of freedom, to be able to take care of your family financially, but also to be able to be there physically. Woj is on the opposite spectrum of that. Woj makes good money, but again, every trade Woj is very connected to NBA front offices in particular. So every time there is something that's done at the coaching level, at the ownership level, every time there's going to be new news updated about the CBA, adjustments that are being made in officiating. Whenever they get something big, that's a transaction, it goes to Woj. So you imagine being the steward of information for 30 separate ball clubs and then having to report on almost anything of relevance at all, just by the nature of the fact that social media makes it so immediate that as soon as you find out, you really only have a set amount of time before the next person finds out. And as your reputation as a newsbreaker, you want to be the first one to do it. That's the way news works as well. Like, different context, but as somebody born in the 90s, the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, that was a huge thing. But the reason why it was so crazy is because we only really had one network to go to that was covering it at first. And then that became like the news story of the day. Like, whenever you're in this game, the quicker you can do it and the more accurate you are, the better reputation you get, the further you move up the ladder. And Woj was at the very top of that. And I would even say, politically, like, there's a lot of people that do similar to what he does, but Adrian Wojnarowski has this network of communication that was rivaled by, I would say, almost no one in media. And so I think it's a great thing, Nick. I think that when you become that good at what you do, that recognized, it's a really good honor to have. But at the end of the day, like, I'm also like a family man, and I think that's a part of it too. You know, you want to take care of your people, and you want to take care of your health, and you just want to make sure that you're doing what you can to provide. But on the other end of that, man, like, you know, I got to make sure that I'm living my life at the same time.
That's it. I mean, it's just so all encompassing all the time for what he had to do. But he put himself in that situation. Like you said, he had the relationships. And to me, he changed the game in that the news was he was quicker, he was more accurate. And honestly, I think it gave power to the, you know, to agents. I think it gave power to some front offices where it all of a sudden became, you know, the way that Woj covered the NBA, and I'm sure there was some of this before Woj and all this, but it seemed to completely take over the league. And that there was the you know, the smokescreen season where like stuff is said. You know how they talk about before draft season, there's like, oh, this team is interested in this guy and all this. There became this like dynamic of power between two different entities with a reporter in the middle, and you didn't have to just wait until the next day for a newspaper to come out or for a news report on TV or something. It was Woj going to Twitter and saying, hey, there's rumors that this team is interested in this guy. Well, there's interested that this side is wanting this, that this player is wanting this for this contract. And all of a sudden, it changed the dynamic in negotiations in the NBA. And so that's why I think Woj completely changed the landscape of the NBA.
Yeah. And I think there's, you know, Shams is obviously the next up. You know, he's the one that's kind of taking on that role and responsibility. Right. And so, you know, there's going to be another person that kind of takes that role. Again, Adam Schefter is on the NFL side. You know, and then also breaking news and reporting. Look, I would much rather always be a personality, be an analyst, just because like there's just still a level of freedom that you have that exists in that. Like, you know, the Shannon Sharps, your Stephen A. Smith, like people of that caliber that are personalities that aren't necessarily like going out and doing the job of digging up news stories and asking questions in interviews. You always want that to be a feature, but the amount of stress that you have to carry with you, and also the amount of accuracy and where your brain has to be on all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a lot, but I mean, truly, man, like he was the best to do it. And I think that this is the big thing for the NBA, because it's like, even in the social media spectrum, you know, where does that vacuum of power go? Where does that vacuum of information go? Mm-hmm. And how are we going to be able to have the same kind of level of unmitigated access to the league? Because on top of that, Woj he's a figurehead for the front offices and for the team, but also for the fans. Like, fans gain information about their teams from Woj. Everybody, if you're connected to the NBA almost in any capacity, if you're on social media at all, you know who Woj is. And that's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's TikTok, like whatever it might be. He has also been feeding information to like the next several generations of basketball lovers. So it's going to be really curious to see kind of how that changes, because we've all been shaped so intricately by his own methodology and his approach to his game, just because like literally like anything happened, Woj bomb, you know, like, so it's just going to be really curious to see kind of how everything morphs and changes from here. But I mean, honestly, like, really just like a game-changing announcement, but obviously I'm very happy for him. Honestly, you know, if you can go into an industry, get a great reputation, you know, treat people well, and then you can earn a lot of money doing it and get out, I'm with it.
I'm with it too for him. The other thing I think that he did, you sort of mentioned it there, was that I think Woj, in a way, unintentionally consolidated NBA reporting to like one source. It became Woj is the one guy, whereas before I think you would get some reporting from this guy that was connected to this player, some reporting from this guy that was connected to this, and maybe it was, you know, the people that were inundated with teams, the beat writers would report a bunch of stories. Now we don't have beat writers that really report stories anymore, because Woj and Shams like beat them to it. Right? Like that's sort of the wild thing about what he did and how he did that. So I'm curious if there's some sort of vacuum that is just filled by Shams. So coming up, let's talk about who replaces him. What happens now? Who's next? We'll get into that and more, how it could change the NBA coming up.
Count it up.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA to get a bonus and all kinds of stuff like that. Go to Game Time, see what is available in your area. They have all kinds of stuff: sports, comedy, concerts, theater. I've used Game Time for pretty much all of these, and what I love about Game Time is you can just toggle the all-in feature, and you can see exactly what the price is going to be up front, all the fees and all that at checkout. You gotta love that with the all-in price. You can get views from your seat. There's a bunch of sites that just aren't doing that anymore. It's lazy, but Game Time has it. You know exactly what your view is going to look like, see if it's obstructed or anything like that, and you know they're going to get the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is coverage with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. What time is it? Game time. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of this show, being an everydayer, listening every day. We have a daily show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team, like Locked On Nuggets, like Locked On Mavs. We're on there talking about our teams deep into the offseason right now, talking about what our teams are going to look like and all that. Check the link in the description to find that show. But here we're on Locked On NBA Swipa. We're talking about Adrian Wojnarowski, the big final Woj bomb from him. Talking about him leaving. You mentioned earlier the Adam Schefter, what he said about Woj leaving. Schefter, the great NFL reporter, that's sort of the Woj of the NFL. He said he wanted his life back. He didn't want to have to work holidays. He didn't want to have to be away from his family gatherings. He didn't want to have to take a shower with your phone up against the door so you can see a text that's coming in. He wanted to, you didn't want to take your phone into the urinal and hold it with one hand while you take care of business with the other. That's the life that we live as these guys. And so now he moves on. Woj is going to move on. He has agreed to become the general manager of ESPN's basketball program at St. Bonaventure, which is the college that he went to. He wrote a book on it and all that. The role includes name, image, and likeness allocation, recruiting, and some supporting successful coach there. And so hats off to Woj, and excited for him. I saw a couple sports information directors say, well, you're still gonna have to work weekends here because blah blah blah. This welcome to college athletics. And I was like, you think anything is gonna be less you think that you're gonna be just as busy as Adrian Wojnarowski was the last couple of years doing what he did? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Nobody's gonna match him. Real quick, are you putting Adrian Wojnarowski in the Basketball Hall of Fame? First ballot?
There's a media Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but the Basketball Hall of Fame is contributions to the game.
Are there media members already in the
I'm
Hall
pretty
of
sure
Fame?
there are, right?
Because I know there's a media Hall of Fame. Ernie just went to the media Hall of Fame.
He's in that.
So,
would you put him in the actual Basketball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, if they're taking media members, then yes, then he would be a first ballot media member included into that. But I can't think of a lot of media members that have had more impact on the overall game, and especially the contribution as circulating information. Do you see their?
They do the Kurt Gowdy Award, so they do the person that is a basketball writer, broadcaster, and all that.
So every year, one person.
Yeah, it looks like it. But I think they should just let him in for contributions to basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he should make the Hall of Fame for what he does. I don't know, making special amendments for one person for the media, because if that's the case, I mean, Bill Walton should be in there just alone off of that. But yeah, I mean, I just think that Woj definitely deserves to have the highest honors that you could consider for that, just because of the fact that, again, there's just not anyone that we leaned on more for information in the last several years, and obviously with the advent of technology, as his role increased, his prominence increased and stuff as well. Do you think that this is the way forward, like what Woj has created? Do you think this is something that you can replicate, or that's something that just kind of naturally happened over the course of time, like similar to Stephen A. Smith and Allen Iverson and the Philadelphia 76ers? He kind of grew up as a journalist in that media market, and so therefore became very well tied to that community. But do you think that this is something that you can just have kind of a trusted liaison in the media that's all the NBA teams are going to want to work with?
I mean, we've got one right now in Shams, right? We're going to talk about who's next, and he's going to fill that vacuum of the big guy. There's already been talks that ESPN is interested in Shams to replace Woj. Shams was kind of like Woj's protege for a while. He's 30. It's not like he's going to go anywhere, right? But when you're talking about can it be replicated? Can there be a next generation of like Woj's? To me, I had a conversation with Mark Stein recently. Mark Stein lives in the Dallas area, and so I've seen it at a bunch of Mavs games and all that. And he said, I pity your generation. Like me and Shams are about the same age. He's like, I pity your generation because when I was your age coming up and covering teams, I would go and sit in front of Charles Barkley's locker room and get to talk to him for like 40 minutes before a game. And me, with the level access that I have to the Mavs, I can't even go into the locker room at all anymore. Since post-COVID, they changed all that. And so the creating relationships is just purely on.
It's way different.
It's way different than it used to be. Now there are still events like Summer League where you can meet people and different events like that. And guys like Rafael Barlow's created a bunch of connections and stuff like that across the league. And it's wild to hear Rafael talk about the people that he knows, our Locked On NBA big board host. But I don't know that there can be another Woj like that. I do feel like it came at just the right time where he had just the right access and was able to connect with all these people. Because you look at some of the others that have tried to replicate it. Chris Haynes is another name that's been reported out there. Jake Fisher, Yahoo is out there.
Whoa! Actually, no. Chris Haynes, he already kind of has taken that role with TNT. I actually think if there's going to be like a next up, it probably needs to be him. Jeff Fisher is also very commendable as well for what Jake Fisher rather. There's Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher was the coach for the Titans back in the day. Jake Fisher, but I do think that Chris Haynes would probably be the one that I would be, because Chris Haynes also has a relationship with the players, because the players like him. I've got a chance to talk to Chris Haynes a few times as well. Really bright dude, like really good dude as well. Like take his business seriously, cares about what he does. So I actually think he might be the next one I would think about.
If you're ESPN and you had to choose between Shams and Haynes, you'd pick Haynes?
Well, they're taking Shams. They will always go for the names.
I just feel like he's quicker and more connected and more like, he just gets every story, and it may not, he wasn't getting him as fast as Woj sometimes, but man, he beat him on a bunch of stories. So I think that's who's next, right? Like I think that's who comes up, and I don't know who comes up after. Like I don't know which young reporters are rising through the ranks, and we go, oh, all of a sudden this guy's got a bunch of sources like that. The final Woj bomb, I found this really, really interesting. The final Woj bomb was Isaac Okoro's deal with the Cavs. And Isaac Okoro tweeted that he was the final Woj bomb. Just found that really funny. The greatest Woj bombs of all time. You ready for this?
Yeah, let me hear this.
All right, which one do you think is the greatest? The greatest one.
Ever?
Yeah, ever. The best,
like
the greatest.
Most retweeted?
Just the most, like the most Woj bomb. Like if that was an adjective. Like this is the biggest one.
Well, there's two that come to mind. One's very somber. One's very somber. It's Kobe when he died. Yeah, that was like
huge.
That was huge. That's the biggest probably ever. But the biggest one, like basketball, has to be Kevin Durant.
Durant one is a good one. I think 80 to the Lakers in 2019.
That wasn't as big as Durant though.
That one is huge.
We had smoke screens about AD. For
a long time.
And, because he was signed with Clutch already. There was already like a...
There is something about, though, there's a ton of lead up to it, and then all of a sudden it happens, and it's like, boom, like finally it was official when Woj said it. That same summer, a month later, the 2 a.m. OKC time, Oklahoma City's trading all-star Paul George to the Clippers for a record-setting collection of draft choices. That was a huge one, too. Super late.
Yeah. Where were we at that point? LeBron returning to Cleveland was nuts. 14, so that probably would have been up there.
Here's a huge one from a while ago. 2011 in December, NBA owners have pushed Commissioner David Stern to kill the deal, sending Chris Paul to the Lakers. Sources tell Yahoo Sports. He was still at Yahoo at the time. Mm-hmm. And then to me, the Kobe one is huge. That probably should have been on here, but the biggest one was March 11th, 2020. NBA has suspended the season. That was the tweet. I mean, that just sent shockwaves everywhere. I was the Mark Cuban gif at that.
That was. So I remember at work, the COVID had happened, and I remember on March 15th, I sent an email in on the 14th saying, "Look, y'all, this is big. This is not like." People were kind of teetering about it, and a couple people had sick in Atlanta and all that stuff. I'm like, y'all, like, no, this is. So we had a meeting downstairs in the atrium area, and literally, like, we were all like kind of separate from each other because it's just started happening.
That
was March 15th. And then March 20th, and I remember the Nuggets were playing Dallas, actually, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it was the Boban game. Boban had like 37 and 15 or 20.
No one's heart was in the game at all. And they were just like kind of going through the motion. And then literally, what's the NBA suspended prior to that or after that night?
No, the game was happening.
That's right.
The game was happening because that's why we have the gif of Mark Cuban on the sidelines. Like, oh my gosh. Like Scott Tomlin, who was the Mavs, PR, I think he was assistant PR director at that point, came up and handed him the phone and look at this tweet, and he was like, oh my gosh,
right.
Wild.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then that's the same night, was it? And then Rudy Gobert had that whole incident with the microphones and all that.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert with the microphones and all that. That was absolutely wild. So those are the biggest ones. Let me know in the comment section on YouTube and on Spotify what were the biggest Woj bombs that you can remember, the biggest ones that shook your world. Coming up, it's Counted Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Swipa, is Ben Simmons back? Talk about that coming up. Count it up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. You've heard us talk about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. But we have something a little bit different for you now through September 22nd. Still got time. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account, current form of payment. You can cancel any time. Visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. They have all kinds of NBA futures odds. They have NFL odds that are currently going on. WNBA, that's still going on. The playoffs are going to start here pretty soon. So go check out, see what they have available. They even have the first couple of games. Knicks, Celtics. Celtics open as a 5.5-point favorite in that one. Different things like that. Go check out. Again, it's FanDuel.com.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that from that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
It is Counted Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. We've talked about Woj enough, so I'm going to put those to the side. My first one here. The annual video of Ben Simmons in the lab came out from his skills coach, Chris Brickley. Have you seen this video of him taking jumpers and turnaround jumpers and throwing up shots?
Look, no, I haven't. I'm glad I didn't.
A fan tweeted at the video, shout out Chris Brickley, but Simmons is a lost cause. Chris then responded and said, thanks, bro, but Ben is healthy, moving very well, and he is now better than his all-star seasons. I've never co-signed a player that didn't prove it when their season started. Trust me on this one. Gave him basically a trust me, bro, on this one. My question is, on a scale of 0 to 5, how out are you on Ben Simmons? 0 is I'm still in.
It's not that I'm out. It's just can we see it happen? Can I see him stay on the court? I'm pro mental health. He went through some really tough, difficult things.
For sure.
So I wanted him to not play anyway. He couldn't even function. He wasn't even couldn't do any. He just wasn't himself. So if Ben's healthy, if, and he's also if fully locked in, he's going to be a great player because he was a great player. So at the very worst, Nick, if he's healthy, he's a top 15 defender in the league, 12. That's a huge asset to have. Last year of his contract, maybe he can rebuild his image like Jonathan Isaac did, because once he got healthy, it's oh, wait, he's the best per-minute defender in the league. So I think Ben Simmons, if he's healthy, I would love to see him thrive. I would love to see him play really well. Maybe get traded somewhere. Maybe get signed somewhere else. But, yeah, let's all root for Ben Simmons.
I don't know if he wants to rebuild his image exactly like what Jonathan Isaac did.
He wants to rebuild his on-court image to get another bag.
Okay. There you go. Ben Simmons drops a book. It just feels like we're inevitably going to come back to, well, Ben Simmons is out again. It's just been so long. I can't even remember. When's the last memorable Ben Simmons moment? When he didn't take that shot for the Sixers?
He had a corner three he hit. Well, that was the Nets? Well, that was 76ers.
He had a corner three that he hit.
He did, yeah.
He has not hit a three with the Nets. So
okay.
He went 3 for 10 his last year with the Sixers. He was a 3-time All-Star. He was an All-NBA guy. He was 2-time All-Defensive. He was a very good player. It's been 2 or 3 years. I mean, I guess it's been 3 years since that moment in Philadelphia. So,
well, this is the perfect time. It's his contract year, and he wants to keep getting money to buy houses with basketball courts in them or whatever else. So He has a property in LA. Look, if I'm Ben, go ball out. Get you a second contract. Get 100 mil.
Career salary. Let's play career salary for Ben Simmons.
How much?
Yeah, guess.
Oh, I know. He was 16 draft. He got a rookie max extension. So that would have been at the time, was that 140 basically?
Total?
Just the extension or the full career?
Oh, I'm doing full career.
So he was the number 1 overall pick. So I think he's probably made 170.
I'm do math here today.
It's 170?
203.
How?
After this season. Because he's making 40 million this year, 37, 35, 33, 30, and then he made like 8, 6, 6, 5 his first 4 years.
Did he get the elevators because of All-Star games and all that stuff?
He must have, yeah. He must have got that with All NBA or
Oh, sorry. I was going by Jamal Murray contract, so he's not made an All-Star game.
He signed a 5-year, $177 million extension in July of 2019.
Dang. All right. Yeah. Well, if you can do it, do it. I'm not. Look, I don't feel a way about players getting paid. If you can get paid that much money to go shoot a basketball, do it.
Not a Nets fan, not a Knicks fan, or not a Sixers fan. Doesn't bother me either. All right. The next one here. Seattle is going to get the Supersonics back, and they're going to get the history of the Supersonics back if the NBA does decide to expand there. OKC will be treated as an expansion team. The Oklahoma City Thunder will give the Seattle Sonics their history back. So all the records and all the extra stuff, all that will be given back, which means Kevin Durant then switch teams again. Do we count that as Kevin Durant switching teams? Source said that if it was a team to return to Seattle, the Thunder would cede the Seattle history back to Supersonics, just as the Charlotte Hornets reclaimed the Charlotte era history and all that kind of stuff. My question is,
Count it up.
do you like this, and should we take it further with other teams?
In terms of what?
In terms of a team, all right, a franchise moves from Seattle to Oklahoma City, and they, now all of a sudden they're giving back this fake history to this new expansion team. So the Lakers are giving
it to Minneapolis?
That's the question. Should the Lakers have to give it back? And
then Boston has to give up titles to, was that the Clippers?
If Buffalo gets a team, do the Clippers have to give back some of their history? Like, do the Kings have to give some to Cincinnati? Like, if they get a team again?
Yeah.
Do we have to do it for all of these?
Yeah.
Or is it just because Seattle's like specific and special?
Well, Seattle is OKC though. Like, it's such a lost history at this point. They were an NBA team until 2000. What year did they go? 2009, 10,
2008.
Yeah, so 2008. Like, Seattle, like, I admit, like, I have vivid memories of Kevin Durant, Rashard Lewis, Ray Allen, and all them. Like, our generation we were all affected by that era, of basketball. I remember watching Melo and Durant go off Durant's rookie year.
Yeah.
So I think they should get their history back just because they never should have lost their history. There's non-basketball reasons why they lost their team. So
that's right.
Everybody wants Seattle to have a team again. So I think they should get all their stuff back, personally.
Yeah, so they're getting it back, and so I think that's great. And I think if your team gets stolen from you like that, I think you get it back. But the thing, it is weird if, like, all right, should Minneapolis get some of their Lakers titles back, even though it's the same franchise that's moving from one place to another? It is kind of a weird, like, mechanism now, weird thing that we're doing. We're just giving them this history, just moving it, just changing history. Fan favorite, Boban Marjanovic departs the NBA after a decade, signs with Fenerbahce in the Euroleague. My question is,
Count it up.
Has there ever been a player like Boban ever?
Ever, like, personality-wise as well?
Personality, one of those, like, end-of-the-bench guys that you just love. You could bring him in. We already talked about him today where he had that crazy game right before the NBA season got suspended and all that. Has there ever been a player like Boban? Or is he one of a kind?
No, I mean, he's like an action hero. Like he
literally
transitioned being tall into being in John Wick. And, some of us were rooting for him for about 25 seconds there in that movie until he got he got beat to death by a brick, by a book.
A book.
That's right. Boban's, everybody loves him. He's the big lovable guy. He's a great family man, it sounds like. He, Jokic and him, Bogey and him, like, everybody loves him. He played in who was it? What's the name?
Goran Dragic.
Yes. He played in his game that they had, like, little celebrity game and all that, and everybody loves him. So, yeah, I think he's kind of a Shaq in a way, just without Shaq's, like, on court presence at all.
He is maybe the most beloved teammate of all time.
Yeah,
right?
he's up there.
He may be the most beloved teammate. So there you go. Let us know if Boban is the most beloved teammate of all time. Let us know what you think about Woj. Who replaces Woj? What's the biggest Woj bomb you've ever heard? And go listen to Locked On Nuggets with Swipa and Matt Moore. Go listen to Locked On Mavs. Me and Isaac and Slightly are holding it down over there. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.